All right. Hey everyone, it's Wendy with You Can't Yell at That Deaf Girl with my Thursdays at 11. And today we're going to do things a little bit differently. Normally I will record this the day before and do all the editing, but I thought today we'd do something a little bit different. I've invited my son Brady to join us. My cute little boy, kid. To join us today. It is Autism Awareness Month, and we're going to talk about that too because there's a shift. But before we get too much farther along, please feel free to let me know you're out there. #live, or if you're watching the replay, #replay. And for those of you on the YouTube live, please feel free to subscribe and show me some love. Anyways, let's get started. So, this is my son Brady Johnson.
Hi.
He is 20 years old, almost 21, and he is autistic. He is on the spectrum. And we thought we would talk a little bit about autism and what it means for him and things that he would like people to know. Because again, it comes down to communication, and guess what? It's not always about the speaking and all that stuff, because everybody has some very unique ideas on what autism means. And let me tell you, the stereotypes don't always fit. So guys, here's Brady. So Brady, tell me what you think about this Autism Awareness Month. You were telling me some interesting things this morning about how they're shifting things with that. So what are they shifting it to?
I mean, most people in the autism community prefer that it be called Autism Acceptance Month because it's not about being aware of us, it's about accepting us for who we are.
That's
and that
absolutely right.
That we're not broken, we're just people.
Right. See, no, I've talked about that broken thing before. Things that have been said to me as I've been growing up, you're broken because you can't hear and all that stuff. So again, it kind of goes back to that acceptance, the inclusivity and to foster change. So I'm going to give you a couple of facts about autism. And Brady, jump in anytime you want. Okay?
Okay.
Right. So, in case you didn't know, 1 in every 54 Americans live with autism. That's more than 3.5 million Americans that live with the spectrum disorder. Kind of an interesting thing. And as most of you know, if you're aware of anybody or know anybody with autism, it's also defined by a certain set of behaviors, and it's a spectrum condition because it affects people differently and varying degrees. So we're going to talk about that for a second. Often you hear autistic children or people described as high functioning or low functioning. Let's talk about that. I know Brady has some thoughts about the high functioning label. Yeah. He doesn't like labels, period. So let's talk about that a little bit.
I mean, I feel like high functioning makes people think I don't need assistance with some things. I mean, and just like everyone else, there's still things I need help with.
Yeah, like what? Define that for me.
Like crowds and loud noises.
Okay. So let's talk about that for a second. So autism actually, usually it's a developmental disability that impacts a person's social skills and their communication, relationships, and their self-regulation. Now with Brady, he's very good. He's pretty independent for the most part, but there are still things we struggle with. Elevators or escalators actually have been a problem, but he's getting so much better. He's been working on that. And the other one would be crowds. I usually have to make sure that we're on the peripheral of a crowd because it really sets in his sensory overload. And you want to talk about that a little bit?
I mean, it also creates a little bit of claustrophobia.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Absolutely. For a lot of us. I know when we go to Comic-Con, we always make sure that we're either there at the very beginning when it's less crowded so that we can handle the crowd, right?
And we usually do it in kind of 3-hour intervals.
Over the 4 days that it's open,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Which works for both of us.
Yeah, so Brady made a comment that I thought I would share with you. Ultimately, all autistics have different areas in which we thrive as well as times we need more support. He says, I'm not high functioning or low function, I'm simply being. And so I found that interesting because a lot of times people will associate autistic people with being nonverbal or can't think on their own or anything like that. And that is something that's on the spectrum, and nonverbal autism is a very real thing. We know several people with that. And it's difficult because I always say, speaking is not the only way to communicate. And Brady and I were just talking about that last night, about speaking is not the only way to communicate, and hearing is not the only way to receive stuff either. Just tell me what you think about that one.
I mean, kind of with your hearing, I had to think of multiple different ways to communicate with you.
Right? Like how?
Like texting works.
Uh-huh.
It works to get your attention.
Right. But not by throwing things at me, right?
No, that's Moira.
My Moira is my granddaughter. So tell me some more what you're thinking about the whole autism thing. I mean, I know you've struggled with it a little bit with school and all of that stuff. And
I mean, there are parts of it I've struggled with more than others.
like what?
Like relaying information from, like, putting it on paper.
Yeah, absolutely. And what else?
Like, because like I take in information really well and I can speak it, but I have trouble typing it or writing it.
This is right. So, you know, it's an interesting thing because there's so many different things for autism, the autism spectrum disorder. I mean, Asperger's is something that probably a lot of people are familiar with that name, and they've shifted that to autism spectrum disorder, so there's not any like one specific thing. And Asperger's is actually the lesser of all of the autism diagnosis, actually, but they're still on the spectrum, which is why they've shifted it to an autism spectrum disorder. What distinguishes Asperger's from classic autism is that they're less severe symptoms and stuff like that. But autism, usually the signs of it are, you know, a delay in developmental abilities, speaking, physical stuff, all of that good stuff. So tell me how you feel about that shift from Asperger's to autism spectrum.
I mean, it gives people kind of a better idea of what they're dealing with.
In what way?
Because more people are aware of autism than they are of Asperger's.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, autism kind of has a bigger media presence.
Yeah. Do you feel like, speaking of that, do you feel like the autistic people are fairly portrayed in the media and movies? I know with The Good Doctor, with the that doctor being autistic and stuff. Do you feel like they're fairly portrayed?
I mean, some are, some aren't.
Even when they're done by actors that are not autistic themselves?
I mean, I think it's kind of more important to have autistic writers than it is autistic actors.
What's that?
Because writers are actually the ones creating the character and are the ones, you know, kind of writing everything, creating the situations.
Okay, that makes sense. So one thing with Brady that I will point out, and the reason why we swing back to the Asperger's, so I can help people understand, you know, as part of the difference between Asperger's and autism, so to speak, is the obsessive categorization of stuff. I mean, Brady is absolutely obsessed with Spider-Man. And if you ask him about Spider-Man, you'll get like a 10-hour dissertation. Honestly, don't ask me about Spider-Man when I'm in the room. I know enough about Spider-Man.
I could write a college thesis report on Spider-Man.
Right. I know, right? But, you know, most autistic children are kind of that. I mean, it's not OCD, but they're obsessive tendencies with it, and they know facts and they know categories of information, and they have great memory skills. And Brady's memory skill when it comes to stuff is awesome, but he struggled with abstract concepts, if that makes sense. He's extremely creative, but making that creative work sometimes can be a struggle for him. Is that right? Okay. So they do consider autism an intellectual disability. Asperger's, anyone on the spectrum, which gives him the ability to do something we both really love. And you want to talk about your Special Olympics Utah career?
I mean, no, Special Olympics Utah has been really good for my family.
Yeah, in what way?
I mean, it's kind of brought us closer in some ways.
Yeah, how do you figure?
I mean, you and Colby are a lot more involved in things relating to me.
Oh, of course we are. I mean,
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we be?
Right.
One of my favorite things with Special Olympics is every March they do the R word campaign, which is not using the R word, which is actually pretty good. So
I mean,
There's nothing that bristles us more when people use the R word.
yeah,
Right?
because I mean, it's basically a slur at this point.
It is. It is. How do you feel? How do you feel? Do you? How do you feel in communication? If you want to tell people how you're feeling about things, and you want to let people know that you are struggling, what kind of communication technique can you use that would assist people in serving you better, so they can help you be a better part of the conversation or a better part of the activity?
I mean, it helps me to kind of have a second to breathe first and collect my thoughts.
Mm-hmm. To process.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You want to expand on that a little bit more?
I mean, because when I collect my thoughts, I'm kind of better in conversations and social situations.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. What else would you like people to know out there about autism and all the stuff that you work through every day?
I mean, autism is a spectrum. Not everyone struggles with it in the same way.
This is true. This is true. And but what would you want people to know about that?
I mean,
Besides having patience, something that I don't have.
patience is a big part of it.
It is. It is. And so, what?
Kind of that willingness to work through issues.
Uh-huh.
Kind of just take the time to work through them.
Right. So using empathy and compassion and clarity.
Yeah.
And all of that, and effort, So basic communication skills.
Yeah. Basic human decency.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. So let's so let me give you some facts about autism really quick. So about 1% of the world population has autism, on the autism spectrum disorder. That's a lot of people. There's about 1 in every 54 births in the United States. 3.5 million Americans live with an autism spectrum disorder. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but the prevalence of autism in U.S. children has increased by about 120%, and it's also the fastest growing developmental disability. And it's also expensive. So it costs almost $8,600 more a year to educate a student with autism, because you have to create the IEPs and the 501s and all that stuff, which is absolutely amazing. I'm so glad we have those things for ourselves.
High school made a huge difference for me.
Yeah, talk about that. So when you have the ability to make some adjustment to be able to learn on your feedback, again, I always talk about communications. You have to meet people where they are. So sometimes in education, it's the same thing. You have to meet students or kids where they learn as well. So we did that for Brady studying in 9th grade. Tell us how that made a difference for you.
Teachers make a world of difference.
Yeah, teachers, but in what way? Because they knew how you learned, or?
And there was a teacher that got the process started for me.
Right. I know, but what I'm trying to talk about is your experience, your learning experience. Once we understood how you learned, and we were able to adjust so you could learn on that, how did that change things for you?
I was able to take tests easier.
Mm-hmm.
And it made it easier for me to kind of keep track of information.
Right.
They were a lot more willing to work with me. My science teacher.
Yeah, your science teacher was huge.
No.
So I don't know. So anything else you want to tell people? About just your overall experience in life as you gulp down your water.
Oh, like I said, it's all about basic human decency.
Okay.
Autistic people deserve the same respect that everyone else gets.
Everybody does. It's the thing. That's the thing. One of my biggest things with the whole "you can't yell at the deaf girl" thing is that it takes empathy, clarity, compassion, and effort to communicate with anyone. It doesn't matter the level of disability, of lack, or without a disability. It doesn't define how we communicate with each other, how somebody's mind works. What it does define is the effort we make to understand that, so we can meet them halfway. I really truly believe that in all areas of life, that there's always ways to communicate with someone, verbal or non. Like I've said before, 93% of communication is is nonverbal and only 7% is. So that says everything right there. So as Brady's been saying today, labels sucked in many ways, and we are working through a whole bunch of things with all those labels anyway. And again, as he has said, I'm not high functioning or low function. I am simply being. And I love that he said that. We all thrive in different ways and we all thrive in different areas of life. And just because we struggle in one area doesn't mean that we don't have capacity in others. He is working so hard on his little photography business and stuff. So I'm excited to see where he goes with that. And we have some great things happening, but I really wanted to take a moment and talk about, Autism Acceptance Month and the things that need to take place with that. It's definitely a beautiful thing, and he's got a beautiful heart and a beautiful soul. And pretty much everybody I've ever met with autism is a pretty beautiful person with the creative levels there. So if you ever want to learn more about autism, go check out the Autism Society at autism-society.org. Learn more about autism and the spectrum and the things that you can do to help those in your world that do have autism. I can guarantee you know somebody on the spectrum, because if you know me, you know him. And you do know somebody, probably one of the best people ever. Anyway, go ahead and make sure you let me know if you've been listening live or if you've watching the replay, hashtag live or hashtag replay. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and show me some love. As always, I'm ready and willing to take your feedback and want to hear what you have to say out there. And I hope today was a little bit helpful. It gave you a little bit of insight into my world with my favorite person, one of my favorite people, and the things that we do here. Anyways, go make it a great day. Enjoy the day today and make good choices. And I will see you next week on Thursday at 11.